Good morning. I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the June 28th, 2017 edition of the Bible Delight in the Details, as we continue our ongoing series at looking at the Psalms. Today we're going to look at the very end of Psalm chapter 7. Psalm 7. Now, this is another one of the Psalms attributed to David, and it is allegedly about really in response to slander, absolute slander, defamation that somebody named Cush has been putting out about David. Many scholars believe that Cush was some kind of either relative of Saul, King Saul, or someone high up in the court of Saul. Cush was also, it's confusing because it could be a name. It could also refer to where this individual came from. Cush in the ancient world is thought to be in Ethiopia, and where modern Ethiopia would be. So it could be somebody who came from Cush, but it's somebody who, for whatever reason, is throwing out defamation against David. And David in Psalm 7 is very bold and asks God, if I am in the wrong, if I have wronged him, then punish me. Absolutely. But if not, then vindicate me. It is ultimate confidence in one's own innocence. First of all, that's very marked. Apparently, from what we can tell in Psalm, whoever this Cush was, it was someone that David had had dealings with, and according to David, had treated him very well, had not broken any promises to him, and yet was being treated very poorly, and actually was being defamed. We've seen these kind of psalms before, where the psalmist, feeling burdened because he is being unjustly used in some way, appeals to the God of justice. And he's very confident that ultimately God will vindicate him, because he knows that at the heart, at the core of God's nature, is a sense of fairness and a sense of justice. Excuse me. And he counts on that. But I want to point out in the very last verses, he talks about that a man digs a pit and then falls in himself, that he creates weapons against others, and then they themselves wind up hurting him. You know, the great theologian of the 17th century, Matthew Henry, who has written commentaries on every single book of the Bible and every single chapter thereof, said about this psalm that it is remarkable how those who are intent upon mischief fail through their own devices. You know, perhaps one of the greatest examples of that truth in the Bible is from the story of Esther. You remember there was a very evil counselor to the king. His name was Haman, and he had schemed to get the entire race, the Jewish race, killed. And one of the things he wanted to do was to kill Esther's uncle Mordecai. And he had actually had a gallows built in his own backyard so he could witness firsthand the hanging of Mordecai. And it turned out when the king was made aware of the evil plotting, it was Haman himself and his sons who were hung on those gallows that he had prepared. But you see it throughout not just the Bible, but throughout even life today. There was a very popular book several years ago called The Law of Attraction. You may remember that. And it's the idea that what you give out to the world, or I think the book said to the universe brings back to you. Well, you know, that doesn't always work. That's not always the case, but it is very often the case. And certainly the Bible warns us in Psalm Psalms and in Proverbs and in other places that the way you act will oftentimes come back on you. So let us be sure as we are going about our daily lives that we keep in mind that when we lay plots and plans for other people, they often come back to bite us. We need to always act with a pure and generous spirit. And although it is not guaranteed that we shall always receive reciprocal treatment, more often than not, we often do. And even if we are mistreated, we can say with the psalmist, with purity of heart, that it was not through a fault that we brought on ourselves deliberately. And then we can rest easy that we worship a God of justice who vindicates the righteous and the innocent. I'm J. Lenore Bressler. Visit me tomorrow in the next edition of the Bible. Delight in the details. Have a great day.